Hey, it's that Deadeye guy, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the foundations of the PC gaming viewpoint that I draw from when assessing titles. These games are ones that guide my preferences to this day, and that I still go back to from time to time to remind myself why I fell in love with PC gaming in the very first place. I think it'll give a fairly good introduction for viewers to decide on whether my tastes match their own. It should also make it easier to determine if my reviews and content will be beneficial, entertaining, and informative. Almost everyone considers these games to be great, but I want to talk about them here to emphasize how they've influenced me specifically. This is the newest title on this list. Honestly, any of the original Orange Box titles could have been here, but I chose Portal because of how utterly unique it was. I could be convinced that the sequel is the better all-around game, but it only improved on an absurdly fun and interesting concept that was first introduced with the original. This title created a puzzle-solving experience that was unforgettable and really capitalized on the strengths of the versatile Source engine. It also introduced us to one of the most memorable villains in video games, GLaDOS. Portal more than holds up today and will be studied as an example of great game design for years to come. From the moment you take your first steps into the Tristram Cathedral, you can feel that this is no sappy knight in shining armor fantasy game. For me, Diablo set the standard for creating atmosphere in RPGs. The first time I played it, it felt almost like a straight horror game with some RPG elements thrown in. Environments are dark, really dark, and the hellish gothic creatures lurk around every corner waiting to murder you. The tone of the whole game made you feel as though you were really battling against true evil, clawing your way to the depths of hell for the final conflict against the Lord of Terror himself. This whole tone was something that the second installment lost a bit of, and the third installment lost all of, to their detriment. Diablo is pretty old, so you'll probably have some compatibility issues installing it on a modern machine. Luckily, there's some mods out there that add quality of life features and compatibility updates, as well as some extra content, while still keeping the original feel of the game completely intact. If you've never played the original Diablo and you're into RPGs, I highly recommend going and giving it a try. This will probably be the wild card of the list. While many somewhat older PC gamers likely played EverQuest back in its heyday, few folks these days likely really appreciate it for what it was. It was the first true step into 3D space for the massively multiplayer online role-playing game, and it was damn awesome. EverQuest truly captured the feeling of stepping into a complete fantasy world and allowing you to be whatever you'd want. Ogre warriors to gnome wizards to high elf paladins to dwarven rogues, the world of Norath was just waiting for you to create your digital self and get out there to explore. The social and RPG elements of this particular game created a very tight-knit player base on each server. There weren't any auction houses or many of the other modern social features that come standard in the genre these days. This forced people to communicate and form a true community. It's no shock that EverQuest created so many deep and lasting relationships between people who first met in the game. I hold a lot of respect for EverQuest as the title that proved it was possible to create a persistent, digital environment that could be truly experienced by large numbers of people. It's possible to play it as it existed after its second expansion. A group of fans and developers host an unofficial classic server called Project 1999 that is free to join and play. I wish I could recommend it for fans of the MMO genre, but I honestly don't think anyone who's never played it back in its prime will be able to acquire a taste for it. It's very unforgiving by today's MMO standards, and the nostalgia factor is a big part of what keeps me coming back to play it. How could this title not be here? I enjoy playing most types of games, but if I had to pick a genre that I hold quite a bit of skill in, it's first-person shooters. While Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 planted the seed, HalfLife was the sunshine and water that cultivated that seed into my true love of the genre. HalfLife revolutionized what it was to be a shooter so much that it still completely holds up to this day. The same cannot be said for the previously mentioned Jedi Knight, which makes it painfully obvious how old it is when you play it nowadays. Like Diablo, HalfLife sets the atmosphere and tone immediately. The opening credits and first act grip you in a way that is incredibly difficult to pull yourself away from. The game handles fantastically and was mechanically the foundation that spawned the biggest competitive shooter in the world, Counter-Strike. The diverse weapons, the progression through the Black Mesa and eventually to Zen, the real investment you have in the story despite playing a completely silent protagonist. All of this culminates in a truly fantastic experience that, to me, will always be the granddaddy of all modern shooters. I hope this provides some insight into my gaming journey and where I come from when approaching new titles with a critical eye. If you feel like my style and tastes are something you'd like to see more of, why not toss me a like and subscribe? Until next time.